15 minutes, I just give you the context. Okay, I'll establish the context. Then I will deep dive into the different tasks. Okay, I will log in ChatGPT and will start working with prompts. So there are lots of talks in your organizations across in the social media. You keep monitoring and watching, and there are certain things are exaggerated, and there is a reality. What is the myth? What is the fallacy? You should understand. So mostly, the people, they don't know the complete technicality of the models. Okay, say completely come from the non-technical background and see this AI is something like a magic box. Okay, they think that okay, AI will do everything for us. But those people who started from data science, machine learning, you completely understand right from the statistics. Okay, the underlying statistics, even if you say statistics, if you are not sure, okay, there is a popular saying, there is even a popular quote by several statisticians in the early days. They used to say that, okay, not all models or mathematical models are useful, okay, or not useful, but some are, sometimes some models are really useful. So in very early days, who formulated the idea of statistics, who made the foundation for all the machine learning models. Okay, you are taking a chance. Okay, with human assisted, you have to use it as your assistance, not as an independent decision maker. So that you should be really understand that. So it's a process, autonomous, require little or no human oversight. But in the reality, definitely an experienced data scientist should completely hold a full control of the architecture or the model, whatever you do. So you cannot take it granted, whatever the results provided by the model. So you have to, under the human supervision, when I say human supervision, it is an experienced data scientist. So it's not a magic. Okay. So blind use of this product will provide you with the wrong answer to the wrong question applied. That is what I told you at the beginning. You should know what to ask. Pinpoint, precisely you should ask. If you facilitate the questions, obviously it is a very worthwhile tool for you. With the bits and pieces of knowledge, if you superficially use this, definitely a wrong analysis is worse than no analysis at all, right? So, because see, based on this AI, whatever the AI decision it's going to take, based on that, your organization is going to take a policy recommendations. You're going to do some policy recommendation. In case if you pose a wrong question and your model come up with a wrong answer, imagine this, they are all expensive failures. So it should be in a good hands. First of all, this is the first thing. It's not like a plug and play. Let me buy it and plug and play and I use it for my organization. So even if you sell a product to a particular client, it is very important to educate the team who are going to utilize this. So the training also, whatever the product you provide, they're supported by training. So how to use it, how actually your model works. So the know-how of the model and how you have tuned the architecture, what are all the way you have tuned it, how you have to interact with those models. The complete, you have to educate the team who are going to utilize it and monitoring the model. And another, this one is a common trend. Almost in everyday meeting, we used to talk about this with my peers. Whenever a new project comes for over the table, we start discussing and all. Even yesterday, I had a meeting with one of a potential client. We were talking about product. Because of this hype, right, over commercialized, ChatGPT is a very big sensation, no doubt. All of a sudden, every organization, they wanted to jump into Gen AI. We also want to use. Even some organization, they are forcing the team to use it. Right? Somehow you try to see in what way we can leverage generative AI. And the sad story is that organization not even leveraged any data-driven decision making so far. Imagine there is an organization and this is their workflow. Organization having some workflow. Of course, they have IT infrastructure. Just they having an IT infrastructure, that doesn't mean even this IT infrastructure, even they have robotic process automation. Robotic process automation is just a automated process which is going to facilitate the workflow of their daily operation of the businesses. If it is a banking process, everything is automated. They have a streamlined workflow. It's a robotic process automation. Whichever the organization, they have an IT infrastructure and robotic process automation. Doesn't mean that they have AI capability inside. You have to find out, is there any scope for AI? First of all, before you start thinking about scope for AI, first of all, you should start, is there any scope for data-driven decision? Data-driven. So since this technology has a very drastic transition that happened from the data science, okay, by the time that people are started moving from the data-driven decision making to now only they were slowly taking a very first step towards this. There are many organizations, they were taking the first step towards this, except the top-notch companies, the leading very big tech organizations like a Facebook, Google, Microsoft, some say, for example, beyond the top 10 or top 20 organizations, they are very well matured. They are already adapted this. But think about the majority, nearly 90% of the remaining organizations, they are migrating to a basic data-driven modules. Basic data-driven model means a simple statistical models and stuff like that. So they were taking a baby step towards this. Suddenly, if something came like a ChatGPT and generative AI become a very big sensation, all of a sudden they were started looking here. What is the scope of this? What is the scope of this? So that's the reality. You have to understand, figure out, not every AI business problem is generative AI. First of all, you have to understand this. Just because generative AI is a big sensation, you should not approach every business problem as a generative AI. So that's what I try to highlight here. First, you have to start from the scratch, whether there is a scope for data-driven. If there is a scope for a data-driven, then you have to find out if it is a data-driven scope is there, whether traditional ML model is sufficient for their, say, for example, if they want to have some AI capability, some prediction model will do, it is going to enhance their day-to-day operations. You can suggest a predictive models, right? That predictive models can come up with simple ML model itself if the data has linear association. Okay, if the data does not have a linear association, of course, you can suggest some AI model like a neural network based model, a classical model. You can suggest classical models. So the classical AI problem and generative AI problem, in what way they are different? The classical AI problem, you are using it for predicting like y equivalent to f of x, predicting model. In another way around, since you people are all technology guys, I just throw a light on this from the technical perspective. If otherwise it's a common audience, means I don't touch upon this. Inside your generative AI, you know it very well. It is like a transformer model, right? State of the art is transformer. Encoder, decoder architecture. So it's like an encoder decoder architecture. So early days, this encoder decoder architecture was structured by a recurrence model like RNN, and then it got improvised to LSTM. Okay, and certain people use as GRU for simplification, and now it's got matured to transformer models, right? Yeah, of course, we are not going to the details of it. The idea here is for the large language model, your generated model, the classical AI model. When we talk about the classical AI model, it's nothing but, okay, from your large language model, the style of encoder decoder architecture, if I use only the encoder only architecture, okay, if I take the encoder only architecture, that is my classical AI model. Say, for example, using a ChatGPT, I can use it for sentiment analysis. It's a very common activity you work with the text data. I want to classify my text or a product. If there is a product description, I want my model has to identify, hey, this product description is about, it is about electronic gadget. Hey, this is the product description about a kitchen product. So this is a product description about a toy, whatever it is. You try to classify this text, or you use it for the sentiment analysis. You go through a review of a product and what is a customer review, is a product review or a hotel review, or whatever it is, a service reviews. If you wanted to use it for a classification task, right? Basically, you are trying to do it as a classification task. So even though it is being constructed as encoder decoder architecture, based on your prompt, your encoder only response will be get triggered. And how it is get triggered? Because of the prompt. And there are different techniques are there, like in context learning and stuff like that. See, once we move on to the details, I will talk about it, right? So your prompt, based on the prompt, because this is a GPT, means general purpose transformer. GPT, general purpose transformer. It is being taught for general activity. Based on the query, your model will behave like encoder only. Sometimes your model will behave like a decoder only. Many times your model is going to behave combination of encoder decoder combinations. The moment you have a decoder component come in picture, decoder component, the goal of the decoder component is to generate something, to produce something. So we attach the term generative AI because you are not doing a traditional prediction. In a traditional prediction, you just predict the output category if it is a classification model, or you are going to predict the numerical quantity if it is a regressor problem. Even for a text data, maximum what you do, we try to classify the text. But more than one step, you are using it like a language model, and you are trying to predict the sequence of words according to the query. You are giving input large paragraph and you are making the model to summarize it. Okay, that summarization is, again, it is a sequence of words, it's generating a new content for you. So since the nature of the output is a sequential output, we call it as in general term, I use the sequential. We call it as a generative. Why I use the word general term sequence? Not even a word sequence. Even you can train the model to generate a musical notes. It's a generative model. You know, the next the step of GPT model, the next version of the GPT is towards musical notes generations and those aspects. Okay, even though GPT-4 Omni can able to take the voice input, but currently it does not support musical sequences at all. So that is the next stage of the research. The team, GPT team, OpenAI team is working. Okay, there is one of the Indian scientists, prominent as Prodigy, the child Prodigy is a part of it's a core developer team. You are already aware of it. Is a core member for Omni. Currently, he is leading the team for the musical notes. So people are expecting GPT-5. Okay, GPT-5, the next version, is going to come up with the musical capability. You can use it for the music generations also, musical note generations. So anything you wanted to generate in the sequence, musical notes, your word sequences, and number sequences, we call that model as a generative model. So AI model, fundamentally, it is the building block, has some AI component, and use it for some generative outputs. What kind of generative outputs? I just listed out. Even you can use it for the gene sequencings. You can generate some interesting gene sequence orders based on certain criteria. You wanted to come up with, okay, I wanted to have this particular sequence. Okay, you try to give some characteristics. Okay, if these characteristics, what kind of gene sequencing is needed? Synthetically, you can create a gene sequence, because everybody is very unique, right? We have borrowed some hereditary from our parents. We have our own unique gene sequence, but you can synthetically generate a gene sequence. Based on this gene sequence, you can create something new. So all kind of these generative models are trying to provide something, whichever it is sequential in order you wanted to generate. We are utilizing the fundamental building blocks AI architecture to generative applications. So we call this as a generative. Having said that, not every AI business problem is generative. That you have to clearly figure it out. So this is what I just told you. What is the difference between AI? Say even the video frames also generate sequence of video frames, speech, audio, music, everything I told. Okay. So here our objective here is the utilization. What is the utilization? How we are going to utilize the ChatGPT is one of the generative models. There are so many competing. Okay, Google is right from the beginning. Google is competing with OpenAI, but still they are lagging behind. You know the story. Even in spite of Gemini, still ChatGPT is leading the race. Okay, Google is finding it hard. So who came to the market first is OpenAI. So really, Google has missed the race. They are working it hard to come up with something outstanding results. It should compete with ChatGPT. So I personally use both Gemini as well as even the earlier product, BERT and other Google products and all. My personal opinion, not only my perspective, I just cross-checked with my peers across different industries. Okay, everybody they agreed, most of the people they agreed with me. Definitely, GPT models by OpenAI outperforms Gemini in many ways. So still they are lagging behind. Let us see what is in store for Google in coming days. Many of you heard about Codex. Okay, so first you try to understand the difference between general purpose. Okay, this is general purpose. This is specific purpose. General versus specific. ChatGPT, the strength of ChatGPT is general purpose. That means all in one. That is the interestingly, the new version 4 is being named as O. Many people are spelling this as a 40. It's not 40. For Omni. This is O stands for Omni. Because now they have included, you can feed your voice input and you can feed the image input. Okay, it is trying to comprehend your these inputs also. That is why they call it as a Omni. That means you are using it for multitasking, right? It is like a multitasker. This is a single task. That means the kind of data, the kind of examples this ChatGPT general purpose model has been taught for encoder only applications, decoder only applications, and encoder decoder applications. Put together all encoder only applications, you can come up with half a dozen of applications like the sentiment analysis and even predictions and stuff like that. Numerical value predictions and stuff like that. Similarly, decoder only you have a half a dozen of applications. Encoder, decoder, you have so many applications like language translations, summarization. You give a smaller paragraph, try to expand it, and you try to some conversation is going on between a customer service and the client. What is the overall conversations? What is the issue? Again, it's part of a subdomain of a summarization, chatbot, question answering. So all those things. But Codex, it's being specially trained with a data set mostly taken from GitHub and other repositories. So where people, all these technology people, they develop, they used to post their queries and they get the answers. Okay, Stack Overflow, GitHub, those kind of value, those kind of records, they have been used for the training. I don't know how many of you experienced it. Whenever you try to ask some coding related queries to ChatGPT, to some extent it will answer. But if you carefully inspect the values, that's what I told you, whatever the results provided by the model, you should not take it granted. When you are in the development, suppose you are in a developer, as a developer, you are going to investigate the model performance. Okay, always you have to suspect the results provided by the model, don't take it granted. So one of the tasks when I was leveraging with ChatGPT, the ChatGPT was giving some results to me, coding related results. The results were not accurate. In fact, it is a lot of deviations were there. Then I take it to like a codex, or even ChatGPT has a specialized module called data analyst. Data analyst. So take the same query to the data analyst. When I investigated the answer, okay, that answer was perfect. How I concluded that answer was perfect, I manually did it using the Python notebook. Okay, and I figure it out, because it is for some task I am doing some experimentation for a particular client. In the process of fine tuning, you have to do it. This is what your investigation, you should do it. Okay, whether these queries, these prompts are working very well in a data analyst environment, but not doing a good job in the ChatGPT environment. So what kind of task you should go to data analyst? What kind of task? Again, now you have, imagine if you are using a free version, you will be using only 3.5, right? If you are using a pro version, you will be given 3 options like 4. This is 4 is a classic. I can say 4 is classic, 4 Omni, okay, and data analyst. In my day-to-day activity, I keep toggling between these 3 guys. Certain exercise I go here, certain task I'll go for this, certain task I'll go for. Not just because 4O is the recent. The people who don't know the intricacies and the building block capabilities, they blindly trust, okay, 4O Omni for every task, because 4O is the recent. I go with recent one because they think that recent is always the best. For all my queries, let me go with 4 Omni. That is not the case. So again, between 4 and 4, still I'm using 4. Just because 4 Omni came, not my every task I'm performing with 4 Omni. Okay, you will understand. I'll tell you what is the difference. Moving forward, I'll tell you once we started working with. So that is the difference you should understand. This is being trained for the general purpose. This is being trained for specific purpose, including the data analyst or even Devin. You know it very well. It created a sensation. People told that, right? The very first AI software engineer. So that is the Devin software. It is just their marketing. So being a new startup, they wanted to promote their organization for the funding. It's one of the marketing strategy. They promoted their product, but the reality is, okay, it's not going to completely replace it. So this is what I told you. Codex is specifically optimized for the understanding and generating the code across. So the kind of the data sets being trained is very specific. So this is being very customized for the specific task that is for the general purpose. So whenever I say codon, it is applicable to data analyst part of our ChatGPT. So this is Devin. Whether the Devin AI replace software engineer job, this is at the beginning itself, I told you the difference. So what is software development engineer role 1.0? So the entry level people, they just do as director. Okay. So they do as just like a mechanically, they just work it. Okay. After this, do this task. After this, do this task. So they are mechanical. So if it is like a mechanical routine work, you do it always fast, right? You do it in a very fast fashion. Unless otherwise you are doing some critical thinking. When you do R&D, experimentation, whenever you do experimentations or critical thinking, some strategical approach, we don't do it fast. Okay. The monotonous work, we do it fast. But when you take a smaller step, whenever you try to strategize something, experiment something, obviously you have to go slow because you do certain critical tasks. So 2 and above, mostly it's a product based. If it is a product based, you have a strong domain knowledge and the business understanding requirement. So they are not going to immediately. There is no scope for Devin AI or in future any other company come up with a new product. In the near future, at least for the next 5 years, they are not going to replace this domain. Obviously, it is going to replace next 2-3 years. People are going to do the cost cutting, including myself. Early 2-3 years before and all, I use interns for some of my preliminary analysis and all. Now, completely, I'm not using intern. I started depending on the data analyst, ChatGPT data. So that is the scenario. So system two thinking means it is a complex and critical strategical thinking. So for strategical thinking, still your AI-based model is far away. Okay, coming to the very first topic, we are going to explore different prompting for different activities. So different tasks. So how we are going to start with? So initially, including myself, before I purchase, see, first of all, when the product is released to us, you wanted to use it for free. And once you get convinced, okay, you wanted to leverage that product to the next level. Of course, you go for the pro version and so on. So when ChatGPT was launched at the beginning, okay, the 3 version, I started using it. So mostly the prompt will be just a simple queries only, right? You give only the text queries. Sometimes you copy paste the paragraph, right? Sometimes you copy paste some paragraph and you ask a query based on this. Okay, like you summarize this, or from the paragraph you try to ask us questions, a chain of question on this. But once you migrate to the pro version, okay, you have a sophistication for the attachment. You attach the data in the different format, like document, text to file. So your document comes with a text to file or as a PDF file. Now it has the capability for the image as well as a voice and stuff like that. So you have a input comes with a different format. So first of all, you need to understand whenever you wanted to do certain analysis, certain task with the help of ChatGPT, there are two scope. Your documents, right? You are treating the document as an object or as a knowledge. Object means you're just using as a file handling. You are using it for the file handling. There are a lot of traditional activities for the file handling, to organize the file or to renaming the file and all. Those people who worked on traditional model building, particularly for working with a large volume of data, images and all, particularly they had of experience, they got particularly when you do the data preparations, working with the multiple files, assuming that you have a folder. In that folder, I have some 250 images. And another folder, I have around 300 images. Sometimes the images are not, names are not properly named or numbered. So different image has a different, but all the images are one category images. Again, in this folder, 300 images, I have another category. But they are in the random order. Those days, it's a very hard time for us to organize these files and all. Of course, to some extent, with the support of Python program, you can do it, but it's a very cumbersome task. Now, with a simple couple of prompts, you can quickly organize and rename these files, and you can do whatever the task you wanted to perform, particularly when it comes to when you deal with the files as an object. If at all, if you go inside the content of the file, okay, when you go into the content of the file, you are dealing the document as a knowledge. So based on the content, you do summarization, interpretations, and translation and stuff like that. You do a lot of activities, right? So we'll start working with interacting with the ChatGPT. Okay, for a few tasks, we'll work document as a knowledge. Also, we'll work document as an object, and we'll go with some multiple activities, okay, beyond it. So with a quick introduction of this, okay, now